Okay, welcome back to Science Corner. Today I am joined by someone who's had a massive influence on the performance nutrition space long before any of us really knew what sports nutrition or performance nutrition was. Steve Jennings, known globally as the father of creatine, is a former professional cyclist turned entrepreneur and innovator who spent over 30 years building and launching nutrition brands around the world. You were actually the first person to bring creatine to the market at the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, and your entrepreneurial journey has enabled you to work with some of the biggest names in the business: PepsiCo, Nike, Lego, Unilever. You're now leading Generize, developing new business models, technologies, and solutions designed to help people of all ages experience the health, wellness, and therapeutic business of creatine. Steve, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Jordan, and it's an absolute pleasure and privilege to be a guest on Science Corner. And as you know, I'm a very, very big and supportive fan of SuppCo and the direction that you are taking when it comes to trust, transparency, and being what I would call an objective voice in an industry that needs it quite desperately. So yeah, it's great to be a guest, and I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with you.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of voices, like yours is important here because most people know creatine these days, but they don't know the story behind it. So how did you first become involved with creatine? What drew you to it originally?
Yeah, this is quite the story. It's almost a screenplay or a scene from a movie. So in 1991, I founded what became Europe's first weekend warrior active nutrition brand called Maxim. We were developing products that were actually not too dissimilar from Cliff Bar and Power Bar. And we saw this opportunity to create products that were aimed at a broader audience. This was back in 91. It's a very long time ago. When we're only now starting to talk about active nutrition. And we had deep connections into British cycling. The British cycling team are part of the Olympic movement, and we got on the radar of the British Olympic Association. And the products that we developed up to that point were adopted to form part of the nutrition strategy for the British Olympic team in Barcelona 92. So we're a fledgling company, and almost out the gate, we are the chosen nutrition partner for the British Olympic team. It's quite remarkable. And we didn't know about creatine when we began this company, but what that relationship with the British Olympic team got us was on the radar of a scientist called Dr. Roger Harris. And Roger Harris and his two research partners, Professor Eric Hultman and Professor Karin Zonderland, up at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden, were conducting and had just finished conducting the breakthrough research study, creatine research study, which showed categorically that creatine could have a 1 to 3% performance improvement on athletes competing in explosive sprint events, quick bursts of energy, 100-meter sprint, 110-meter hurdles, anything that requires quick bursts of energy. Baseball, basketball, ice hockey, you can just extrapolate and abstract into some great directions. He called me up out the blue. I didn't know who he was, pre-internet, told me this story. I kind of believed him. 5 days later, I met with him at a hotel. They gave me a 1 kilo bag of creatine, the only 1 kilo that existed. There was no mass production at this point. There was no market. It didn't exist. And they gave me a challenge. Could you get creatine into the hands of the British athletes who are going to be competing? Because if you do, some of them will win gold medals, probably more than you expect. I took that challenge. He gave me the research paper. This was in March 92. The paper wasn't published until September. So I had this pre-published paper on a 1 kilo bag of creatine, and I accepted the challenge. 47 days later, with the help of a local pharmaceutical company, we developed an effervescing tablet in blister packs. So creatine in an effervescing tablet that dissolved in water. That's what it began with. It didn't begin with a powder. It actually began with a product, pre-measured dose. That was all. It was all pre-measured, no hassle, great for the athletes. And we wanted to bring a product to the Olympic athletes that was no risk. They didn't have to worry about what is 3 grams, what is 5 grams, 1 gram in each tablet. And that's how it began. the story exploded at the Olympic Games, and it got captured by the global newswire, and we just never looked back. We didn't have time to look back because it literally exploded, and the demand went from zero market to demand, which really grew. And then creatine really took off in the USA with Phosphagen, EAS, Anthony Almada and his team. And from that beginning, from that one telephone call, an entire new supplement molecule category was born.
And
that's the story.
And a huge category. I mean, it's only continuing to grow. And so that's an amazing story. I think like that background, I can only imagine being like sitting there with your one giant kilo of white powder in a hotel room to figure out how to explain your way out of that one. So when you are thinking through all of this, like you talked about, this was a very niche performance tool in the 1992 Olympics, and now all of a sudden it becomes mainstream. Talk to me a little bit about, like, there's a lot of complexity that goes from taking a product from that very niche market to a global phenomenon. Talk to me about these challenges that you face in taking creatine, kind of soup to nuts, end to end, and bringing it to like the larger market.
Yeah, and I think what creatine has got going for it, and I think this is something that has really given creatine wind in its sails during the last 3 to 5 years, is that it's one of those molecules that attracts great scientists, great researchers, people that are really curious. It tends to attract scientists that have got a lot of curiosity and are really good at asking what if questions. So creatine is the most researched molecule supplement compound in the world. It's vast amounts, thousands of papers and studies and human research that has been replicated, and it's hugely researched, and that research is deep. And what we've started to see, which is supporting creatine's transition over the mainstream, are more scientists starting to ask questions about what is possible with creatine, where could it go? And this is leading to some incredible papers being published that are pointing to incredible applications and benefits: women's health, menopause, bone density, cognition, brain health, dementia and conditions related to dementia, aging population, health span, muscle atrophy, sarcopenia. The list goes on and on and on, and it's only going to grow. And as I mentioned a few days ago to somebody, we're at the beginning of truly understanding what's possible with creatine. It's not a silver bullet. It's a very simple molecule, and we're starting to realize today, and over the next 5-10 years, it's going to be transformed even more. What can we do with creatine that contributes to improving human health?
And so, I mean, you just talked about so many benefits that creatine can have. And so from the outside looking in, you're like, how can creatine do all these great things? So maybe let's take a quick step back and say, like, okay, for people who are maybe taking creatine or thinking about taking creatine, but they don't necessarily know the physiology behind it. Can you give us a quick explanation, simple terms on what exactly is creatine doing in the body?
Yeah, and it's actually very, very simple. I think that's the beauty of creatine. It's a simple molecule. It's a combination of 3 amino acids. It's found naturally occurring in the diet, in meat and fish. We produce, but it diminishes as we age, around about 0.5 gram naturally in the body each day. We have a store of about 165 grams in the body. And what creatine does, its primary role in the body, is that it's transported into the muscle, it's stored in the muscle, but it's used within the cell and then within the mitochondria as the spark, the energy source for ATP. So it's the ignition for cellular energy, basically. It's like having a battery inside of your cell, inside of the mitochondria, and it's creating cellular energy. And that cellular energy enables my hand to go like that right now, my eyes to blink, for me to wake up in the morning. If this mechanism didn't work, we would stop. It's that simple. And when it's very complex in terms of some of the mechanisms now, in terms of how do we get it across the blood-brain barrier? How do we start to deliver creatine with precision accuracy to specific neuroreceptors in the brain? This research will come quite quickly over the next decade, but in its most simple mechanistic way and form, transported into the muscle, into the cells, mitochondria, sparks of energy, and it enables us to do the things that we do, that we just take for granted. Our body is a huge interactive chemical machine that is super complex. And as we know, if you go 1 degree out of sync with the process, you become ill. Metabolic health issues, your immune system is compromised, you get the cold, you get the flu, you don't recover so quickly from exercise, you start to feel tired and fatigued. And creatine is playing a pivotal role in helping you to do the things that you need to do on a daily basis at a cellular energy level.
Got it. So yeah, creatine, ATP, for those that don't know, ATP is essentially the molecule that allows us to do and move and do anything. So that love that. So when I look at shelves, you see creatine, but you see creatine monohydrate, you see micronized creatine, you see all these different you see all these different types of creatines.
Yeah.
What's the best? Is there a best? Why should we take one versus the other? What's that all about?
Yeah, that's also a fantastic question. And generalize, I would say that we are creatine agnostic. Creatine monohydrate is the most researched form of creatine that's currently in the market. So creatine monohydrate has got pretty much all of the research behind it. All of the research that has been conducted with creatine monohydrate. Okay, and that is just a fact. And all I'm doing is explaining the facts to you. There are, however, other forms of creatine. There's creatine salt, there's HCl, there's chloride, and all of these forms of creatine have different characteristics, different moisture. They hold more water. There's anhydrous there's got no H2O in it whatsoever. It's just 100% creatine, but it's very difficult to work with. It's very difficult to use for a practical application. Creatine monohydrate is very easy to work with. Okay, it mixes reasonably quickly and easily. It's easy to get a hold of. It's in abundance from a supply perspective. And I think, from a consumer perspective, you go with what the research supports. But there are other forms of creatine where the research is starting to build, which, it isn't nowhere near the level of monohydrate, but there's no reason why some of these other forms of creatine won't find a position in the market for a very specific application, an extremely specific application. And new forms of creatine will continue to come, especially with the advent of new technologies, especially AI, that can help us to develop new types of creatine, even new ways of manufacturing creatine. But today, monohydrate is the go-to. It's the one that has got the most research behind it. And you work with the product and the compound that has got the most rigorous scientific research and studies behind it.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And so then with creatine, we have a lot of myths. We have a lot of side effects or bad things that can happen. We hear talk about kidney damage. We hear about all these things. Based on the evidence, based on your experience, which of these side effects or these applications are real and which ones are exaggerated?
Yeah, well, for sure, creatine doesn't cause hair loss. It doesn't. You can speak to the leading scientists, and some of them don't have a lot of hair, but they would say that is an absolute 100% myth. When it comes to the kidneys, it's a really great one. The human body and the kidneys have the capability to excrete very large amounts of creatinine. It doesn't put extra stress on the kidneys. The only time it becomes a problem potentially with the kidneys is if you have a medical condition and your kidneys are compromised. Okay, then you need to think about, I'll just go with 1 or 2 grams of creatine, maybe 3 grams of creatine, up to about 5 grams of creatine. The waste product, the byproduct from synthesizing creatine as a supplement is creatinine, and you can easily synthesize that. It doesn't put any undue stress on the kidney. Okay, so it's only if you right now have been diagnosed with a medical condition that you need to either speak to your doctor or be very prudent in the amount of creatine that you take. And at 3 grams a day, your body can handle that really, really quite easily. Even if you've got issues with the kidneys, 3 grams a day isn't going to put too much undue stress on the kidney, but just seek medical advice if you're really uncertain.
Got it. And how important are things like hydration or electrolytes or even tapping for maximizing the benefits of creatine?
Yeah, that's a great one. And it's a very, very good question, because as you start to go into these higher amounts of creatine, 10 grams, 20 grams a day, creatine draws water into the muscle because of the cellular activity. That cellular activity is utilizing a lot of water. It is. I mean, water is part of that energy system. And if you are dehydrated and you are starting to take quite large amounts of creatine, there is a potential risk that you may cramp. Because your body, you are dehydrated, you're utilizing more of the fluid that's in your body. So drinking more water when you go to higher doses of creatine, from my perspective, is do it. And if you need to be encouraged to drink more, use electrolytes, because they're a great way of just taking away this. It's drinking a glass of water. It's hard work. It's like, wow, drinking water all day long. It's like, do I have to? I'm going to have two glasses of electrolyte and three cups of tea to kind of keep that hydration. So electrolytes play a great role because they encourage you to keep drinking. They're quite pleasant, and especially with the way electrolytes have evolved, convenient stick packs, powders, new flavors, new mouthfeel. It's a great way to encourage you to drink. So creatine and fluids is important. Creatine and electrolytes works. Creatine and carbohydrates and protein works because it increases and improves the bioavailability of creatine if you're taking it together with food or together with protein. So these are just like little hacks that just help you to optimize the bioavailability of the creatine and to improve the percentage of creatine that's been absorbed into the bloodstream and then eventually into the muscles.
So with water following creatine, one of the things I hear all the time from people is, I don't want to take creatine because I'm going to feel bloated, or I don't want that bloat. I hear it from friends, family, etc. Talk to me about that. What's that bloating like? Is it a myth? What are you going to experience?
Oh, that's a very good, that is what I would call a loaded question. And there's kind of several schools of thought about this, around this. On one hand, it's what I just mentioned about the muscle is drawing water into the muscle because the cellular activity significantly increases, and it requires that water to enable that cellular activity process, the Krebs cycle, ATP, ADP cycle, to actually function. That isn't bloating. That is the muscles drawing water into them so that you can produce more cellular energy, you can exercise a little more, you can recover in between sets, you don't feel as fatigued when you wake up. As you're aging, you don't feel that tiredness and that cognitive, that forgetfulness. So that is just part of the process. When it comes to bloating, this is a really interesting one. Now, I've got personal experience of this, and I've got friends in this year that have started taking creatine for the first time on my advice, and it's working for them, that go, crikey, I feel as if I'm bloated in my stomach. What is that? And it's a very, very good question. And I've experienced it, especially when I go to really high levels of creatine. It's like, crikey, I'm recovering from sleep deprivation. I'm getting by on 4 hours sleep. I can exercise unbelievably. Recovery is amazing. But I do notice this little bit of bloating. It's not fat. You're not putting on, it's not weight gain. It's the creatine, and it's your body adapting to creatine within the body, and it eventually it adapts.
Got it.
It isn't a permanent thing, it adapts. And if the creatine that you're using doesn't work for you, try another brand. Try a brand of creatine that may perform differently, even though it's monohydrate. Okay. And there are no hard, fast rules on this. It's very much down to the individual finding a form of creatine and a daily amount that works for them. There's no rules, there's no playbook. You have to take it like this. You start using creatine, you find what works for you. And then when you find what works for you, you got to stick with it.
I think that's great advice. I think people kind of shy away from it from that reason because they're looking for that playbook. I think that's good advice. Like start low, maybe titrate your doses up, go from there.
Yeah.
All right. So what is the biggest mistake people make when they start taking creatine?
Oh, that's a great. These questions are so good. I think people expect results very quickly. It's not like caffeine. It's not like, having a cup of coffee and you feel something, or having an energy drink and you feel something. With creatine, it's actually quite subtle. It's actually nuanced with most people. With some people, it's 5 days and it's like, this is unbelievable. Have you put anything else in this? It's like, no, it's just your body you've obviously been depleted of creatine. If you're a vegan, you're massively depleted, and you're just experiencing what it's like to get your body back from being depleted back to a normal level. For most people, it takes about 14 to 28 days to saturate the muscles if you're taking 3 grams a day. And at that point, you start to notice a difference. Waking up in the morning, not feeling so tired, having more energy throughout the day, realizing that you don't need that coffee at 3 in the afternoon. You don't need to bridge. It's like, wow, it's quite interesting. I've realized I don't have to have a mid-afternoon coffee or even, a coffee at 7 in the evening. I just seem to have that vitality. And most people, they grow into creatine. It's quite a personal journey that people go on. For many people, it reminds them of how they felt when they were in their 20s and 30s. And the best results we've had, certainly this year, have been people in their 50s, 60s, 70s that have never taken creatine before. The feedback we get, the emails we get, the calls we have with these people are unbelievable. It's transformational. As you're aging and then you start taking creatine for the first time, you're not looking for performance improvements. You're just looking to be able to go on a good hike, play paddle, enjoy a round of golf, be very active with your grandkids. And that's where, I think creatine is going to play really strong in that health span journey, that aging population journey, and something that brings ageless vitality to somebody's life. But it's not a silver bullet, but it has. People have said to me, could this be the fountain of youth? And I'm going, we can't use that language. It's just crazy. But personally inside, it's like, I know what's possible, but you can't talk like that publicly. It's the individual has to discover that and realize that, well, I wish I'd have been taking this for the last 20 years, but it's never too late to start.
Absolutely. Right. So let's talk about the landscape of creatine today.
Yeah.
When, there's all kinds of studies coming out, all these new indications, which of these areas in terms of quality, formations, public awareness, what has you the most excited right now?
Oh, I would say women's health is the one that really excites me. And I think it's because, there are many things that as a man you can't relate to, and you're seeing research now coming out, which is the benefits of taking creatine during pregnancy, the benefits of taking creatine if you're breastfeeding baby, the benefits of taking creatine if you're premenopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, the benefits of creatine and bone density. These are huge benefits for the female population, like really significant. And the research is pointing and indicating that as these studies are replicated with more, bigger groups of people, that these are going to be very significant health benefits for females, for women. They become life-changing. And for creatine to be part of that journey in an individual's life is beyond anything that I could have imagined 30 years ago. It's beyond anything that I could have imagined. 30 years ago, when I first got involved with creatine, Roger Harris made a comment to me in 1992, one day everyone will be taking creatine. He knew the mechanism and he knew what the potential opportunity was going to be, but it's taken a long time for the research to catch up, for the research to be published, for the research to get the awareness that it requires and needs, and for people to start to interpret that research in a way that is contextually relevant to their lives. And that's what we're now experiencing. More and more content is talking about the benefits of creatine for women's health, the benefits of creatine when it comes to brain health, cognition, memory, potential applications around dementia. I mean, these are huge benefit areas, and these get me up in the morning. This interests me way more than athletes and sports people getting bigger. It's like the human health applications are where the future is for creatine.
Got it. This is super validating, because every morning when I wake up, I make my creatine, but then I also make my wife's for her, so that way she has it and she takes it every day. But if I don't make it, she's not taking it. So that's good. Yeah. That's good. A good validation point for me to keep doing that. Okay, Steve, last question for you. As we look ahead, what do you think the next decade of creatine innovation is going to look like? And what do you hope people understand about creatine as we continue to move forward in this space?
Yeah, I think I see the next decade really. I think if I had a time machine and I could go 10 years into the future, I think we'll be looking back at now and scratching our heads. Really, it's like, guys, how we were still talking about creatine. We were still having conversations about hair loss and is it safe, and all of we get inbound, all these questions that are very, very basic. I think the next decade is going to be, it's a little bit like what we're seeing in the world of technology. You suddenly see a big leap in a technological breakthrough. You suddenly see, wow, we've gone from that to that in the blink of an eye. AI, we're experiencing that right now. This was a technological breakthrough that leapt us into the world of Star Trek in the blink of an eye. Creatine, I believe, is going to go on the same journey in the next decade. It is going to become available everywhere, affordable, mainstream, potentially moving from supplementation to fortification. That gets really exciting. What does that even mean? How do we bring creatine to hundreds of millions of people, maybe 1 billion people? And in perspective, there are maybe 35 million people taking creatine on a daily basis today. So we're very early. And I know that the technology that is emerging and the tools that we will use will compress research. It will accelerate research. It will be like a little bit like what's happening with drug discovery. Research is being compressed because of the understanding of the technology you can use to speed up clinical trials, to get to the place where you need to be faster, which means lower cost, bringing something to the consumer, to the population that's needed. Creatine is going on the same journey. And there are other compounds that will go on a similar journey, especially in the longevity space. And they will just become normal. It will be normal for creatine to be like protein, the proteinification of everything. And I think it's just, I'm not asking the question, will that or won't that happen? It's how far can we push out the envelope in the next decade? How far are we going to push out the understanding, and what new barriers that we haven't yet seen are going to be broken? What are we going to break through? Because we're going to see new breakthroughs with creatine, new researchers that aren't even researching with it, that are going to come out of university, digital natives, super AI literate, that'll have a thesis and they'll make a breakthrough that is Nobel worthy. I believe all these things are going to happen in my lifetime, in the next decade. So yeah, it's incredibly exciting.
Got it. Steve, I love it. Steve Jennings, the father of creatine. Steve, thank you so much for joining me. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Thanks for having me.